Jeremy Tarling. I'm a data architect working with BBC News Online, and my role over the past year has been working with news, with journalists and with colleagues in future media to look at how we might introduce linked data to drive dynamic aggregations of news content. And as part of that work, we developed an ontology, a data model called Storyline, working in collaboration with colleagues in the BBC and across other news organisations, specifically a Wire Service, the Press Association, and Guardian newspaper. And we also had some advice from Google as well, from Dan Brickley. And I think the reason that we collaborated was really driven by a common interest, a common problem that we were trying to solve, which is that we know that we can use linked data to do straightforward semantic annotation of content. We can say this article is about David Cameron, or this piece of video described an event that took place in Birmingham, those kinds of things, which is easy enough to do. But actually, most of what we do in News Online, and indeed BBC News output across the BBC, is tell stories. It's not events in isolation, it's about how those events fit together, who was involved in them, who are the sources that we can trust to give us an account of those events. And the Storyline Ontology fundamentally is about using a linked data approach to do that storytelling in a way that a system can understand and we can use to make those same kind of semantic annotations of content. So specifically in terms of what's available through the API, we've got the ability to search for an individual storyline, either by a storyline title or by an associated topic. So for example, you might be interested in the HS2 high-speed rail link, which is scheduled to be developed and go through various places, Birmingham, so it has a lot of local news impact. And what you can do is discover the storyline and then see the content that's associated with that storyline. And that in and of itself is a step forward for us, in the sense that we're starting to group our content by storyline. I think what we're particularly looking to investigate in this event is the more complex types of storylines, so not just a storyline as a thing like HS2 to use to annotate content, but actually a storyline with a sequence of events inside it, and perhaps even storylines inside other storylines, and those storylines having their own sequences of events and their own people, places, organisations associated with them. So that sort of complex storytelling, which exists of course in a journalist's head and exists in the flattened HTML articles that we produce, or in the pieces of video or audio that we produce. How can we unlock some of that as data and make it reusable so that it could be used to drive storytelling within the BBC and more widely across the rest of the web as well? Because of course, because we're using linked data technologies, we can link up this content, link up BBC News content with content from other news sources and indeed other parts of the BBC. So describing the Storyline Ontology, you've got this central class of a storyline, which is what journalists might refer to as a slug. It's an instance of the thing that we're talking about at the moment that's in today's running order. And storylines can exist in isolation, and they have those sorts of data type properties that you'd expect a story to have, so a title, a slug, a synopsis, those sorts of things. A storyline can have an attribution, which could be a particular journalist, it could be a particular eyewitness, a member of the public, if it's an event being described. And then a storyline, crucially for the purposes of this event, a storyline can contain storyline slots. You can think of storyline slots as placeholders or containers that can contain the sequence of events that the story is made up of. So the reason that we abstract these storyline slots from the events themselves is so that we can use those events in different storylines, different tellings of the same narrative, or indeed of future narratives that we don't know about yet. If we started to say that this event is event number 6 in this sequence, then we've actually added a property to that event that locks it to that storyline, and that's not what we wanted to do with the model. So we have this storyline slot sort of abstraction class, if you like. The Juicer as a platform provides automated concept extraction and semantic annotation. So in plain English. The juicer reads the text of news articles, both from the BBC and from other sources, looks for things it recognises, so people, places, organisations, and even a few themes or sort of intangible types of concepts. When it finds them, it annotates that document, creating a linked data triple that says that this article is about this person, place, or organisation. And this process has been running for over a year now, and we have hundreds of thousands of annotated pieces of BBC content and content from other sources, which are available at your disposal for the hack events over the next 24 hours. We've also prepared some storylines using the data model, the Storyline data model. We've created, with help from editorial colleagues, from journalists, some sample storylines which will allow you to immediately query the API for those richer content associations that will show that these pieces of content are actually part of a wider storyline or part of a narrative arc, if you like, and be able to assemble all of the content that's part of a particular storyline as a sequence of updates or developments in that storyline. That's available through the API for a defined number of storylines already. So we developed the Storyline data model, working in collaboration with a wire service, with a newspaper, with a search engine. And we know that it works with the sample data that we used. We know that we think it's got potential as a useful data model, not just within the BBC or the news industry, but perhaps wider uses across the web. What we really want to see from this event is what its potential is. Let's see it used in anger with a rich set of data that exists, with the hundreds of thousands of articles that the juicer's been juicing and annotating. How might we actually develop some exciting storyline experiences for the sorts of rich stories that we already tell in our flat content? How might we link those stories up into these sorts of narratives? What will those user experiences look like? Is the model fit for purpose? I mean, if we come out of this hack event with some suggestions for improvements to the model, I'll be very happy. I think that will be some positive feedback. So I'm very excited to see what the model looks like when it's used in anger.